Hi everyone, my name is Corme, and today I'm going to bring you guys a guide on how to efficiently use Way of the Crane inside of Mythic Plus. So Way of the Crane is definitely my favorite Mistweaver spell. It's probably, if not the reason, one of the reasons I decided I wanted to switch to Mistweaver instead of Resto Druid for this season. It's also the reason I even started looking into playing Mistweaver last season when essences were announced. So in order to unlock Way of the Crane, you do have to get an essence. You have to get an essence called Conflict and Strife. If you are coming back to the game or you haven't played the game that much and you don't have this unlocked, I'm sorry. Getting rank 3 of it is quite the pain. You do have to do arenas. Getting rank 2 of it is really easy. You just have to cap conquest by doing arenas for 1 week, and I think it's something like 1300 rating. Don't quote me on that. But basically getting this essence and using it as your major slot unlocks Way of the Crane for you. And no matter what rank it is, you get the same level of Way of the Crane. The rank of Conflict and Strife only changes the amount of versatility that you get from the minor. Okay, so let's look at Way of the Crane. So Way of the Crane costs 25,000 mana, which is quite a bit. That's a fourth of your mana, and it's on a minute cooldown. So you gotta be a bit conservative about pressing it and knowing that you're gonna get a good amount of value, or that you're gonna drink after, or of course thinking about those kinds of things when you press it. So the spell increases your physical damage by 25%, you remove and become immune to all snare and root effects, and you heal up to the 3 nearest allies for 150% of all the damage you do. And this lasts for 15 seconds. So the reason this spell is so amazing in Mythic Plus, and especially why you see so many people playing Mistweaver inside of the MDI, is because of the sheer amount of healing the Way of the Crane can do in big pulls. So in big AoE pulls, you have so many targets that you can just be pressing spinning crane kick and just like doing AoE and doing massive amounts of healing, and very importantly doing damage. Doing damage as a healer in Mythic Plus becomes more important the higher in keys you get. It helps you time keys. The spell also just does good damage to help you increase your damage in single target on a boss, and for some like minor, not like huge AoE situations, it can help you heal through it or just like top up your group. And it's usually always like a good spell to bring on any fortified week. Okay, so next I want to talk to you guys about what to do after you've pressed Way of the Crane and how to use Way of the Crane. So first we're going to look at the single target rotation that I usually use for Way of the Crane. So looking at the single target rotation. So first thing you want to make sure when you get into your Way of the Crane window is that you're going to have Thunder Focus T before you press it. The first thing you do is you press Thunder Focus T and Way of the Crane. What order you press these in doesn't matter, of course, because this is off the global. All that matters is that you press Thunder Focus T before your next global, which is going to be Rising Sun Kick. So if you're using Secret Infusion, when you press RSK, you're going to get versatility from it. With 3 Secret Infusion, it's going to be around 2400 versatility. So after you do that, you're going to press Tiger Palm. By pressing Tiger Palm, you're going to give yourself 1 stack of Teachings of the Monastery. Every stack of Teachings of the Monastery increases the chance that your next Blackout Kick will reset the cooldown on Rising Sun Kick. Okay, so you RSK'd, you Tiger Palmed, you got your stack, and now RSK is back off CD because you used Thunder Focus T on it. So you're going to press RSK again. This is the big money button. And then after you press RSK, you're going to go ahead and you're going to press Blackout Kick, and you're going to consume the charge of Teachings of the Monastery. Okay, so looking at this, I know a couple of you are going to kind of disagree with me. So the first thing that might kind of look outlandish to you is that I press Tiger Palm and then Blackout Kick instead of pressing Tiger Palm 3 times to get 3 stacks of Teachings of the Monastery and then press a Blackout Kick, which is what almost all Mistweaver guides tell you to do. So in all of my testing, I have found that pressing Tiger Palm and then Blackout Kick is always more DPS than pressing Tiger Palm 3 times and then pressing Blackout Kick. I'm not sure exactly why all of the guides suggest that you do it the other way. A lot of the Mistweavers I've also watched also do it the same way as I do. But if you have any disagreements or any kind of argument against me, please leave it in the comments and I'll look into it to see if there's something that I'm missing. And then after you press Blackout Kick, you're basically just going to keep Tiger Palming and Blackout Kicking to search for RSK resets, or if this Blackout Kick reset the RSK CD free, then you obviously press RSK and then go back to fishing for more resets and just keep pressing RSK as much as you can inside of your Way of the Crane window and afterwards. Okay. So next we're going to look at the AoE rotation. So the AoE rotation starts out exactly the same. So Thunder Focus T, Way of the Crane, RSK, and then after that, you of course just press your spin to win button, your spinning crane kick, and then after that, RSK is back off CD. So again, I always press it again, even though now I've already gotten the versatility from pressing RSK the first time. I usually always press it again because usually I'm running a trait called Sunrise Technique, which I'll talk about a bit later if you don't know what that trait is. And then after that, I just keep spinning, and then when RSK comes back off CD, I press it again. Okay, so those are both of my basic rotations. So I want to kind of step back again and go back to looking at Way of the Crane and kind of correcting some gaps in the tooltip. So here's the tooltip. To be honest, it leaves a lot to be desired because like almost all World of Warcraft tooltips, it doesn't give you the full picture. So if I were to write the tooltip, it would look exactly like this. Okay, so we'll go over this one by one. So Way of the Crane increases your physical damage. This is just me telling you it only increases your physical damage. So that means it doesn't work on things like your essences. It does, however, work on your Azurite. So that means like things like Sunrise Technique and stuff like that, or like Razan's Fury and stuff like that do get amplified. And then it works on all of your physical abilities, so Spinning Crane Kick, Rising Sun Kick, Blackout Kick, and Tiger Palm, but it's not going to work on things like Crackling Jade Lightning. So if you're one of those people who I've talked to who's scared as a healer to get in melee, unfortunately you can't press Way of the Crane and then just sit in the back with your Crackling Jade Lightning. That's not going to work. Okay, so the next part of this tooltip that's kind of confusing is that it says it heals up to the 3 nearest allies. Okay, so what that means is that it's not a smart heal. It is a smart heal, but it's also not. What it means is that instead of prioritizing the people with the lowest health, it prioritizes people who are missing health that are the closest to you. So that means if I am missing 1 health, and my rogue is missing 1 health, and my warrior is missing 1 health, but my hunter, my mage are, you know, they're at range and they're both about to die, Way of the Crane will just keep choosing to heal the 3, me, the rogue, and the warrior, because we're missing 1 health and we're an eligible target, rather than choosing to heal the people who are like really in need of healing in the back. So it will choose to heal people who are missing health before it heals people that are full health, but it will, before that, it's going to prioritize healing people that are closest to you. So you can combat this by basically communicating with your range and being like, hey, if you want healing right now, you should come into melee. Once you start playing with a ranged player more, like the same range player, like if you get a consistent group, they'll start recognizing this. One of my hunters made a weak aura to let him know when I'm pressing Way of the Crane that tells him, hey, go stand in melee if you want healing. I'll include that in the description for you guys so you can give that to your ranged players as well. Okay, so the other thing that's to note about Way of the Crane, so a lot of people always say, oh, Way of the Crane is a short range heal, which is actually absolutely not true. Way of the Crane, like the healing from it is like over 100 yards. So like if you have someone who is missing health, it's like really far away and everyone close to you is like full health, even though they're like way out of like your actual healing range, Way of the Crane will still hit them. This can come in handy on things like full call when you're like DPSing 1 totem and your hunter is DPSing the far totem and you can't reach him with healing. Once everyone around you is topped, then Way of the Crane will start healing the hunter who's really far away and out of your range. And then also, I kind of like it in Motherload because your tank is usually like running in big circles kiting the peacekeepers because of the charge claw, and so you may be in the back like trying to finish off a mech jockey or something and you may pop Way of the Crane, and as long as there aren't 3 people near you who are missing health, that healing is going to go to your tank, which is really nice as well. The other part of this heal up to 3 nearest allies is kind of confusing is when there's only 1 person that's taking damage. So just think of a pack where only your tank is taking damage and everyone else is full health. So your hope would be that because he's the only one missing health, all of that Way of the Crane healing would go towards him. However, that's not the case. It's still going to keep trying to split up that healing among 3 people, so he's actually always only going to be getting a third of the way the crane healing, which means sometimes it's not going to be enough single target healing. It's really good for AoE healing, but depending on how many mobs there are and how much damage your tank is taking, this 1/3 of your way of the crane healing may not be enough. It's also really annoying sometimes, the range factor as well, because maybe you'd hope like, oh, if everyone's standing at range and way the crane can't heal it, then it's only going to go on my tank, but alas, it's just going to keep healing those people no matter how far away they are. Okay, so now to get to the last part of this tooltip, which is the most annoying, where it says, so it says heals up to the 3 nearest allies for 150% of all damage done. All is absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. And it's really confusing that it says all. So it doesn't heal for the damage your essences do, the damage your trinkets do, the damage your corruption does. Basically anything that's not a physical Azurite effect or something that's in your toolkit that's Spinning Crane Kick, Rising Sun Kick, Blackout Kick, or Tiger Palm. Including it does not count for Crackling Jade Lightning, which I said before. The other weird thing that it does that says nothing about is that only 50% of your Spinning Crane Kick damage is converted into healing. So in PvE, this is not true in PvP. So if you go and try and test this out on a dummy and you have War Mode on, you're not going to get the same effect that I'm showing you guys right now. The healing generated from Spinning Crane Kick while in Way of the Crane is reduced by 50%. I'm not sure when this stealth nerf happened, or if it happened right when it was implemented, or what happened. Anyways, this is just a details from me going and hitting one dummy. So I hit the dummy with just Spinning Crane Kick, and I did 135,000 damage to it with just Spinning Crane Kick in my Way of the Crane window. And normally you would heal for 150% of the damage you do. However, the healing I did was less than that damage I did, which automatically shows you the disconnect. Don't be embarrassed if you're a Mistweaver and you didn't know about this. There's a couple reasons you may have never noticed this, and I'm going to go over that in a second as well. But yeah, just know that Spinning Crane Kick doesn't generate as much healing. So this creates some like interesting breakpoints of, so even though I'm doing more damage on these 4 targets by pressing Spinning Crane Kick, should I be spinning or should I be doing single target? Now most of this comes down to, well, do you need the extra healing or do you care more about the damage? Most of the time the healing you generate from Way of the Crane is enough, but sometimes it is important to know, okay, I need this extra healing, so what is the most efficient thing for me to do here? So we can look at that. Okay, so this is just looking at basic DPS, so right here, so looking at as DPSing just one target. Now these numbers that I have here are very arbitrary, so there's no way to sim a Mistweaver right now with raid bots accurately because 1, they won't press Thunder Focus T, 2, if you code them to press Thunder Focus T, they don't know that it resets the cooldown on RSK, so they won't press it again, and they don't even have the spell for Way of the Crane listed anywhere inside of SimC or anything. There's so many problems. So basically these are very arbitrary numbers that I spent several hours at dummies coming together with, and so they're basically just meant to be ratios. So that's why they're not actual numbers, is that I just put them in like easy to read ratios. So don't pay too much attention to the numbers, just pay attention to the differences in the numbers. Okay. Alright, so if we're looking at 1 target DPS, that just means we're Tiger Palming, Blackout Kicking, and RSKing. The healing that we get out of that is going to be the exact same, because we're not Spinning Crane Kicking at all. However, if we look at, of course, anything where it says more than 1 target, I'm assuming that we're spinning. We're, of course, RSKing on cooldown, but whenever we're not RSKing, we're spinning. So if we look at the difference between 2 targets, DPS and HPS, if we're spinning whenever RSK is not off CD, the healing that we get out of it is a lot less. And if we look at 3 targets, it's the same thing. And the 3, like, of course, the DPS is a lot more. Like, the difference between 1 target and 2 target DPS was about the same. So you're like, you know, if I have to choose, I should always be single targeting if I Way of the Crane up on single target, because it's more healing and it's like the same damage. However, when you get to 3 targets, this is where you kind of start running into that decision making I was talking about, of deciding whether you want the healing more or the damage more. So even though it's quite a bit more DPS than just single targeting one of the 3 mobs down, it's also quite a bit less HPS. So you kind of have to pick your battle here and know what you want when you run into this situation. Alright, now when we get to 4 targets, so the DPS of course is a lot more than the 1 target, and the healing is a little, it's pretty much the same, the healing between spinning on 4 targets, of course RSKing on CD, I want to keep saying that, compared to the 1 target. Okay, so these are your basic breakpoints to know when it's worth to single target or AoE. Earlier I mentioned a Mistweaver trait called, it's a Mistweaver and a Windwalker trait, it's called Sunrise Technique. So whenever you attack a target with Rising Sun Kick, it causes your damaging melee abilities to do an additional 1,301 physical damage to that target for 15 seconds. So it leaves a debuff on them so that whenever you use another spell on them, including just meleeing them, tiger palming them, blackout kicking them, and yes, spinning crane kicking them, every time you damage them with one of those abilities, it triggers the additional damage from Sunrise Technique. It's a debuff that lasts on them for 15 seconds. So this healing does feed into Way of the Crane. And because of that, it's going to kind of change our breakpoints, especially because of how well this spell scales with Spinning Crane Kick. Because of how well it scales with Spinning Crane Kick, because you get so many hits on those targets when you're spinning, it's going to change these breakpoints. So that's why we have these 3 other tabs that are looking at the breakpoints that we encounter when we have Sunrise Technique. Okay, so if we're looking at just one Sunrise Technique, so again, our 1 target DPS to 1 target HPS is about the same. Now when we look at 2 target DPS, of course it's gone up quite a bit, and then the gap I would say between 2 target DPS and HPS isn't quite as large. It's still pretty decent between the 2 because we have 1 Sunrise Technique. And then what we find is when we get to 3 target DPS is that the healing we get here is now the same as the healing we got from single targeting. So this changed our breakpoint. So now we get more healing when we AoE on 3 targets than when we were just single targeting, whereas before we were getting less healing. And then of course, because 3 targets is more healing, 4 is going to be even more. So that's just 1 Sunrise Technique. Now if we look at when we have 2 Sunrise Techniques, alright, so 1 target DPS to HPS. Alright, so then we look at 2 target DPS to HPS. Already the 2 target HPS is more than the 1 target HPS when we're running 2 Sunrise Technique. And then of course we're going to see this trend to keep happening. Lower down we go with 4 targets. And then it should come as no surprise when we get to 3 Sunrise Techniques that the 2 target is already quite a bit ahead the single target damage that we get. Okay, so I'm not trying to tell you that you have to run Sunrise Technique to make Way of the Crane good. I just want to show you the kind of difference that this trait makes, and also kind of point out to a lot of you guys who maybe didn't know about the Spinning Crane Kick thing, that if you were running Sunrise Technique, that's probably why you weren't like looking at your healing and noticing that Spinning Crane Kick was doing a lot less, because this trait was kind of buffering it to make a lot of the numbers look better than they maybe were. Like you were maybe attributing a lot of that to Spinning Crane Kick instead of Sunrise Technique. Sunrise Technique does a lot of damage. Yeah. That is basically everything I have to tell you about Way of the Crane. All you can really do now is go in dungeons and learn what dungeons that you like using Way of the Crane in, which ones you don't like it, which ones you get enough healing from it, which ones you don't in certain situations, what pulls you need to save it for, and things like that. I do have a lot of commentary videos that I usually talk about where I choose to press Way of the Crane in a dungeon if I'm using it in that dungeon. I also have a big spreadsheet for every dungeon, and also looking at every affix that tells you what Azurite essences and things like that I go for, that I'm also going to leave in the description if you're interested in something like that. It also includes a bunch of Mistweaver dungeon tips for different boss fights in every dungeon, and a bunch of other corruption and trinket information if you're interested in that. Yeah, I hope you guys found this guide helpful. and thank you.